Hi, and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us, hanging out with us for a little while today. Hope you're having a fantastic week. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about an issue that honestly hits close to home. We're going to be talking about the dangers of overworking, lessons learned from a recovering workaholic, because that is what I am. I'm still in the process, right? Working through this. And we're going to explore some of the dangers that it provides and really honestly how it almost destroyed our marriage, our family, and really myself as well. But before we do that, we want to talk to you about what workaholism is and how to understand the difference between hard work and being a workaholic.
Right. And we think this is an important topic to dive into because as more and more people today are working from home, it's really easy for those lines to become blurred. First of all, let's define hard work. Hard work is about effort. It's about making the most of the time that we have so that it counts. It requires diligence and focus where our mind isn't constantly distracted by the things that are going on around us. Being a workaholic, though, is generally about excess, but in a negative fashion. It's often sourced from a feeling of discontentment, fear of missing out or falling behind, or pride in wanting to be better or have control, where we feel the need to do everything.
Yeah, that's a great differentiation there. In the Bible, there's a story of two sisters. It's probably, if you're going to talk about like overworking, the story that we go to, but there's a reason for it because it's pretty evident to see. It's the story of Mary and Martha. We're not going to read it, but I'd encourage you to go check it out. And Jesus comes to their house. And as we read the story, we see that Martha is very concerned about the home and taking care of Jesus. And Mary seems to pretty much just be sitting there chill talking to Jesus. Like, I gotta tell you, as somebody who's a little bit of an overworker at times, I'm like, yo, Mary, get up and like help your sister out. And eventually, like Martha's had enough. She's like, my sister is lazy. All right. I don't know what she is doing. She gets upset with Mary and she goes to Jesus, probably in a sisterly, like little rivalry thing going on there. Right. And she's like, Jesus, I'm working my tail off to make your experience in this thing so pleasurable, to bring you the best food and to make you comfortable. And she perceives Mary as being lazy. So she's like, can you tell my sister to get up and like help me out a little bit? Right. But instead, Jesus tells Martha something that kind of blows my mind. He tells her that Mary's actually the one who's doing what is best. And I'm like, what do you mean here, Jesus? Help me out.
Yeah, honestly, this story is a bit perplexing on the surface for many people, but that's probably because Western culture idolizes work. And Jesus was trying to share a very simple truth. There's a time to do, but there is also a time to simply be. Notice that he didn't criticize Martha for working, but he did make it a point to let her know that that wasn't all that needed to be done. Right. Often workaholics struggle to understand why others don't work at the same, I laugh because it's so true. They struggle to understand why other people don't work at the same pace that they do, and sometimes this really bothers them.
Yes, exactly. We can.
Yes, and since only about 10% of the population falls into a true workaholic category, those who are working too much are likely going to be upset a lot.
It's so hard. Yeah. Again, hard work is about effort. Overworking is about excess. Remember that difference. Ultimately, it's an addiction to work. And with that in mind, I want to share a few lessons I've learned and am still learning personally, as well as some things that we've picked up along the way that we've seen other people who've struggled with this go through. And so the first thing I want you to know is it's easy for workaholics to lose sight of what's most important.
Yeah. And notice that we said workaholics lose sight of what's most important. Work is important. We can all agree to that. And that's why we should esteem hard work, but work is not the most important thing. So what is most important? It's relationship, both with God and with the people around us. And priorities and order become important here. The moment you take God out of the number one spot, you're in real trouble. And if you couple that with the fact that you're likely not giving your spouse and your family what they need, then you have a recipe for danger.
Yeah, when overworking gets the best of me, I almost get lost in like what I'm doing. Personally, I lose track of time. I will stay up far too late because like I'm in the zone. I'm in a rhythm. Like, don't bother me. Like I got to get this work done. I will literally skip meals. She'll be like, have you eaten today? And it'll be like 3:00. And I was like, oh, I should probably do that. Like, you know, I don't take care of myself because work becomes an obsession for me.
Yeah, and Ray still battles this, but when it was at its worst point, it was like a domino effect. And I really felt unseen, unheard, like I didn't matter unless I was somehow helping him accomplish what he was trying to accomplish. And so that did a couple of things. One, I felt like I always had to be on too. Like I didn't have a time to rest and recharge because if he was doing, then I had to be doing, or he was going to judge me for not doing, right?
Unfortunately, that's not too far from the truth.
Yeah, so it just became this cycle where it was hard. And when you're in the church ministry world, it sometimes feels like it's difficult to argue with all the things that you're doing because they seem like good things on the surface, but it can get to be too much. And it didn't happen overnight. It took time to really become a problem.
Yeah, and I tell people that I have an addictive personality, and I think that's absolutely true, simply meaning that I'm prone to go headlong into things. So I have to make an effort to protect myself up front, because if I don't count the costs up front, then I'm going to be paying the price later on, I promise you. And I'll be honest, I've had to work hard to even identify why I have some of these tendencies, because it's easy for workaholics, number two, to justify their workload, all right? Workaholics are experts at justifying all the things they need to do. Like any person with an addiction, we try to justify, right? And I do it in multiple ways. The two things I usually tell myself and others is that what I'm doing is really, really important, so it needs to be done, right? And often I think it has to be done in the immediate, like right now. It can't wait for later. It's too important, like there's a nuclear bomb or something that's gonna happen. Like my work is not that important, all right? There's other people's work who is, mine is not that. Yeah. So, but the other thing that I tell myself is that I really enjoy the work. And so if I enjoy it, then, what's the problem? I'm having a good time. And honestly, that is usually true. I usually do enjoy working, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't cause issues.
Yeah. Over the years, we just want to share with you a few of the things that Ray has done for jobs. He has worked in customer service. He has done sales. He even had a newspaper route as a child. He sold long distance phone service for a brief time when that was still a necessary thing.
Oh my goodness. That I will just cold call, walk into businesses and sell them long distance.
Yeah, that wouldn't work today.
Could you imagine?
He also sold cookies and ice cream at different times to stores. Let's be clear.
I wasn't just like out of the back of my truck. No. Hey, come on here, kids. I got some cookies for you.
Yeah, that's scary. No, that wasn't it. But he was a janitor for her church. He worked at the post office for a while. When it comes to ministry jobs, he's been a kids pastor, a youth pastor, a connections pastor, a young adults pastor, small groups pastor, associate pastor, executive pastor, lead pastor. Oh, and we'll throw in realtor too, because we do that as well. Besides all of his jobs, he loves a good side hustle as well. And when he was a kid, he would trade or sell sports cards. His mom even taught him how to count cards at one point, so he would play against his friends and win their
It was
sports
great
cards.
Until my dad would make me give all the cards back.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't play poker and
he's
take
a
their
good
cards.
dad, right?
Like blackjack. Yeah, like, come on.
He's flipped things online. He even bought like some toilets once that he flipped.
Fantastic. We made money.
It took a while. Yeah. And during COVID, he got into like buying things from auction and flipping those. So we had a garage full of stuff for a very long time. He has a game blog that he runs. He's written some books that he posts online. He has a personal blog, does various websites, and most recently has gotten into stocks.
Okay, I feel like that was a long list. I feel a little bit attacked.
Not trying to attack you, but there is always something new that he's thinking about and learning about and trying to do. And all these new things take time, and there's always a reason that he comes up with why he has to do it.
Yeah, in fairness to Carol, I did write down many of those things. So it's not like she just like wrote them all down. Oh, these are all top of mind. Like maybe they are, but she didn't write them down. But for every person who is listening that struggles with overworking, let me ask you just a simple question. And it's the question I've had to ask myself at times. When is it enough? At what point will you be happy? When you make 100,000, when you make 1 million, 10 million, when you have 1,000 followers or subscribers, 10,000, 100,000, when you have all the clothes, the shoes, the car, the house, the vacation house, the second vacation house, when does it actually become enough? And if we're just being really honest, people who struggle with overworking, the answer is never, because it's always the pursuit of more. Yeah. And that lust for more can turn into a dangerous demon that we can't control, destroying our marriage and destroying our family. And so I want to encourage you to really get that under control. And honestly, I can't pretend that I no longer justify working too much, because I still do at times, but I do think I'm better sometimes at recognizing at least the dangers and maybe not diving so headlong into things, or at least I'm trying to become better.
Yes, he is trying. But third, it's difficult for workaholics to shift gears. It's really hard for Ray to turn it off. And I remember when we used to be youth pastors and service would be over, he would want to dissect everything on the car ride home, which usually meant telling me everything that went wrong. So
that's what she means by dissect.
That's it. Yeah. So here I was, tired from pouring myself out all day. And now I have to hear this criticism and even more ideas of how we can do things better. But all I want to do is go home and hang out with the kids, get a good night's rest. But now I'm frustrated and upset for the rest of the day. But eventually, we had to come to an agreement that we would talk things over, but we would wait and do it the following day at a set time. So essentially, I had to tell him, hey, at church, yes, you're the pastor, but at home, you're my husband. So we need to set some boundaries here.
Yeah, and that's really, really true. And unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, you need to honestly be just real clear with people who struggle with being a workaholic, because they get so lost in it, they don't always realize it. But it's very true for me. I think it's very true for a lot of workaholics out there. We have poor boundaries when it comes to our work, and we need to establish better ones. And if you're working from home, like Carol kind of mentioned up front, you may be dealing with this too. The lines are a little bit blurred. So let me ask you, do you take phone calls or answer emails after your day is supposed to be over? Do you repeatedly stay up late to get a few more things done? Do you have a true day off? And is there ever a good time to actually take a vacation? And when you actually do take a vacation, do you work on your vacation? See, the big difference, I think, between me now and me 10 years ago is I'm better at knowing when it's actually time to turn it off. That doesn't mean I always do it, but I can recognize it a little bit better. So I'm moving the right direction, slowly, albeit. And I was going to actually come on this podcast and tell you how great I was doing and how proud I was of myself. And then Carol gave me a look when I was kind of running through it. And she's like, yeah, I think you still got some work to do on this, baby. So I just tell you, I think I'm moving in the right direction. I'm maybe a little bit slower than I want to, but I'm moving the right way.
Yeah, there's progress for sure. Well, the fourth lesson we can learn, workaholics will eventually pay for their addiction. And the sad part for us is that eventually Ray got to the point where he wasn't healthy spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or really even physically. And study after study shows us that workaholics are more likely to burn out, suffer heart problems, even be hospitalized. As far as how it affects others, working too much is more likely to affect your mood and behavior in a negative way. And that's definitely what happened to us.
Yeah, at a certain point, I think I knew things were bad, but I didn't know how bad those things had gotten. And I spent so much time justifying my behaviors, making excuses, blaming others. Well, I'm having to do this because you're not pulling your weight. So why if you just got a little bit more done, then I wouldn't be so irritable. And it eventually just kind of boiled over and kind of affected everyone around me. And I'd like to say that I've completely learned my lesson and that I don't overwork anymore, but it's honestly just not true. It's just a couple years ago, I was working so much that I got to the point where I literally worked myself into exhaustion. I couldn't hardly do anything, barely function for about a week or two. And so I just want to say this to you. If you're out there and you're a workaholic and maybe you're beating yourself up right now because you're like, my wife is upset with me or my husband's upset with me and my kids are disappointed, I'm a failure, I'm putting my time into the wrong things. Give yourself some grace, okay? Just step back for a moment, give yourself some grace, but make sure to keep those voices in your life, because you need the voices that will tell you the truth and point you towards what's most important. True story. Like I said, as I was writing this, I thought I was doing good, and Carol kind of pointed out I wasn't there. And so I need that voice in my life.
Yeah. So if you are a workaholic, if you're married to one, if you care about one, then let us give you some tips that will help them. First, remember that your worth is derived from who you are, not from what you do.
That's good.
The value of art is not derived from the material that it's made with, but it's from the way the artist composes those materials to make something beautiful. In the Bible, God is described as the potter, and we are but the clay. And one of the most humbling things in life is to know that one day the world's going to go on without you. But hey, that perspective can be really powerful in helping you keep things centered, to know that it doesn't all rest on your shoulders.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another tip we want to give you is create and honor your calendar, all right? Lots of people, like all of us workaholics, we got calendars. But, we might do it, we might not, let's see what comes up. There's always more to do. Can I just tell you this? There's always more to do. There's always more work, always more things. You need some structure in your life. So put plans on your calendar to rest. Like literally, you can put I'm taking a nap, or I'm not doing anything right here, or take a vacation, or just go out and play and have some fun, go on a date night. Put those things on your calendar and then make them a priority. Hold yourself to it.
The next tip is to eat right and exercise. And this is great advice for everyone, but it can be especially helpful for the workaholic because it allows you to channel some of that goal-oriented energy that you have into something that's going to be beneficial for your body and for your health. Many workaholics eat on the go a lot, and they consume caffeine at really unhealthy rates for a little pick-me-up because they just have to keep going.
I don't really have caffeine, so I do one thing well in this whole list.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of myself right now.
You should be. But taking time to eat healthy will not only make you feel better, but ultimately it's going to make your time working more productive. And with exercise, you can incorporate running outside into your routine. That's really good for you. Actually, vitamin D goes a long way getting some sunshine, but no listening to podcasts or audiobooks while you run.
You're always trying to figure out an angle, right? Which kind of leads us into our next tip, and that is to take tech breaks. Okay. Confession, I'm not good at this one.
No.
If we're honest, we may be working plenty, but we may not be always that productive. And a lot of times it's because we're just looking for something to do. Workaholics like movement, but I want you to remember movement doesn't mean meaning, all right? Don't mistake it for meaning. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can do is to step away and be present with the people that you love, with your spouse, with your kids, with your friends. Maybe start with scheduling a couple of times each day, or maybe you start with just a couple of times during the week, 30-minute breaks where you have no tech. Carol wants to get us to a 24-hour period.
So
I'm having anxiety thinking about it, all right? Because
do.
I have issues and I have problems. I know it. I'm working on it, people.
The next tip is to create a vision frame. And we often say that things are important to us, but our actions just don't back that up. And vision gives us clarity on what's actually important in our lives. So I doubt most people would get to their deathbed and would say that work was the most important thing. But sometimes, right? But sometimes we live life like it is. And a vision frame will force us to do some real evaluation and make progress toward the things that really do matter most. And if you want to find out more about creating a family vision frame, we'll leave a link to a previous episode in the show notes so you can go back, listen to that, along with a download to the vision frame so you can create one for yourself.
Yeah, so if you know a workaholic, or maybe you've been listening, you're receiving this, but if you know somebody, maybe consider lovingly sharing it with them, okay? I said lovingly, all right? Not like, hey, yo, you need to listen to this because you got issues. You're messed up.
No, make sure you throw in a smiley face and a heart emoji.
Right? The emojis always soften things, right?
Yes.
I think it could be very helpful for anyone who is struggling with this. And if you've gotten something from today's podcast, make sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe. That really helps us out. And of course, make sure to hit that bell to get notified of new episodes. It helps us reach more people with hope and healing, this message that infuses faith into their marriage and into their family, and really hopefully will make a difference in their lives. But we want to say thanks again so much for joining us. Have a fantastic rest of your week. We'll see you next time.